Greetings, everybody! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire! Are you ready to dive back into the worlds of Magic the Gathering? Because today, we're once again heading back in time to the year of 2011 to learn all about Magic Core Set 2012. If you're ready to go there, I can activate the Time Temporal Portal to take us through time, through space, back to where we can learn all about Core Set 2012 or M12, Magic 2012, as it was all called. I am your host and guide here, Dracovin. I can lead you there. A little tip might be nice for me, though. Like to start ringing the bell over the YouTube side of things, and let me know your experience with M12. I had a lot of time with it. It was my first really big core set after I kind of came back. Not that I didn't have some experience with M11, but this was my real big core set for my comeback into the world of Magic back around this time for me. Break for some. Anyway. My hands outstretched. The portal is open. Let's get going. Time awaits. It's 2011. Are you ready for M12? Alright, let's start with the basics. Magic the Gathering. 2012, Core Set, M12, Magic 2012. All of these things are names that it goes by. It was released on July 15th of 2012. It had its pre-release events on July 9th through 10th of 2011. I'm sorry, 2011. July 15th, 2011. And there was some launch parties that took place on July 15th through 18th in 2011. Its symbol was very similar to the last one, except it's M12. Hey! Mark Globus was the lead designer, with Tom LaFille as the lead developer, and of course, art direction by Jeremy Jarvis. It was made to be not just based around one plane. Sometimes, some of these times, these core sets can have, like, a particular plane that it beams around, Chandelier or something like that. This one didn't have one. We had big terms in here, keywords of Bloodthirst and Hexproof. We'll talk about it. And, of course, there was 249 cards in the entire set, of which there were 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythics, and 20 basic lands. Alright. We kind of seen these basic for everything and got to understand it. Now, this did also include, and I'm showing off, of course, Birds of Paradise here as a reprint from the Unlimited set, Captain Dracovin meta. There were also premium cards in all these. We had foils, you know. There are foil versions of all the cards in the set. So, as much as there was the 249 cards, there was also 249 foils. Keep that in mind, too, that those did exist during this time period. Two themes that we had returned were, of course, Planeswalkers. Now, I will tell you about the theme of Planeswalkers that was in the last one was the same, but these were only 2 reprints and actually 3 new tools. So we'll dive into it. But Sorin here is one of the reprints that we saw here, coming from us from the Zendikar block. We also saw the 5 Titans make a comeback here from the previous set. Their popularity was pretty big, so they got a reprint here too. There was a couple of other minor kind of themes which showed up in the set too. Auras was a pretty big part of it, with like things like Brink of Disaster there, where enchants a creature or land if it taps because it gets destroyed. And there was also Hexproof and returning mechanic of Bloodthirst. The even Fleetwing there being the Hexproof, which it's not that Hexproof didn't exist, but it's a new keyword that's similar to Shroud. We'll talk about it fully, but this was the introduction of the keyword of Hexproof. Similar concepts to it did exist before now, but this is the actual keyword coming to existence. There was some big design changes here. And of course then Bloodthirst returning, which was a mechanic that hadn't been seen for some time from Guild Pack. And a good example of it here being our mythic here, the Bloodlord of Vasgoth, with Bloodthirst 3 flying, and when you cast a vampire creature, it gains Bloodthirst 3. So it's all about getting some things out there you could Bloodthirst. Dealing damage to opponent, and a creature entering with the number +1. Counters. So you can see that these are the big things that are happening in the deck. Now another thing to mention, which is very interesting and important to talk about, is the return of a language. Korean. this is a very interesting fact because M12 was the return of Korean to the printed languages. Sets from 4th edition through Urza's Saga had Korean printings, but post Urza's Saga, it was actually dropped as a language it was printed in. As of 2012, the list of printed languages increased to 11. English, Chinese Traditional, Chinese Simplified, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish. So Korean comes back in 2012 on the list of printed languages. Kind of an interesting little thing there. Now, what was it sold in? Of course, we got our booster boxes in their 16-card packs, 15 basic cards, the 16th extra card, all those kind of things. Traditional packs that we get. We also had the 6-card booster pack. In this case, it was featuring the artwork of the new version of Jace, which we'll talk about, Jace Memory Adept. We had 5 intro packs in this one. Now, these weren't single-colored intro packs, but they do kind of have... They were allied colors, so it was green, white, blue, black, black, red, green, allied colors, and they did have on the boxes the colors too. We'll talk about all of them a little later on, but yeah. There were also, event decks. We've been talking about event decks coming in here, and there were 2 event decks that were part of this. One pure blue, one pure black. So these were pure colored event decks. Also, we had the Fat Pack. Traditional thing. Anyway, the packs themselves featured art from different colors. Basically white, blue, black, red, green. Hey, it matches the colors of the cards. The white one was Grand Abolisher. Blue one was Sphinx of Uthun. The black one was Runescar Demon. Chandra the Firebrand for the red. And of course, Garuk Primal Hunter for the green. So the 3 new printed Planeswalkers, not the reprint Planeswalkers, were on packs. Jace being on the 6-card pack, of course. A new product that kind of came out here was sold along with the Battle Pack, Booster Battle Pack, which was 2 20 semi-randomized decks, 2 booster packs, and a Magic Learn to Play guide rule insert. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting. It was like a 2-player starter version of something. You can almost think of that as. In this version. Where, yes, decks aren't like full decks, but if you pull out one of these packs, 2 semi-randomized decks, 2 boosters, which each player can get, and some basic rules. They're one of 2 color-specific group of cards. 5 lands and 5 spells for each color. So, there you go. That was the 2-player starter set, the Booster Battle Pack, which was introduced. As for promo cards, well, if you went out to the pre-release, you got a promo version of Bloodlord of Vazagoth. Talked about them already, but hey, get a promo of it. If you went to the launch party, on the other hand, you get a version of Garruk's Horde. Now, of course, Garruk's Horde was introduced in this set, and we can talk about it a little bit here. It's a trample, play the top card of your library revealed, and you may cast a top card of your library if it's a creature card. The buy box promo was Chandra's Phoenix. Again, we'll talk about how these all link together. In this case, it's a flying haste. When an opponent is dealt damage by instant or sorcery you control, or by planeswalker you control, you return it from your graveyard to your hand. Hey, burn stuff, get your thing back. The DCI promo card for Game Day, which the Game Day was held on August 12th to 14th in 2011, Game Day M12. The full art you get from this is Stormblood Berserker, of course. Which is a Bloodthirst 2 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. On the other hand, the winning promo for the full art, if you get top 8 finisher, was a full out Dungrove Elder, which was a hexproof power and toughness equal number of forests you control. So of course there was the 16th card. Yes, the normal 14 cards. You got your other things, the booster packs. You got your your premium card and a 16th card, which was either a Tips or Tricks card or a creature token. Now, I will mention, I spent a couple of days looking around trying to find a version of the Tips or Trick card. I didn't want to dig around in my Magic collection to see if I could find a copy of it. So I don't have a picture of one of the Tips or Tricks cards here. But there were basically 10 Tips or Tricks cards. Bloodthirst, Booster Draft, Casual Format, colors and expansion symbols, decks that work best when decks percentages for land to creatures, drawing, gather and hexproof, limited formats, minimum deck size, planeswalkers, were all the Tips and Tricks cards. So those were one of the sets of it, or a token, in which there were 7 different tokens. The Pentavite token that's being shown here is just one of them. There was also a Green Beast, White Bird, a Green Sapperling, White Soldier, Green Worm, and a Black Zombie that were created by a bunch of different cards. Pentavite here, as I said, was created by Penguins. On the back of these cards was basically an advertisement. These were a landscape formatting. They had no numbering. So Tips or Trick cards is important to note, though. Maybe that's the reason why I didn't find a lot of them. They were landscape, had no number, which is a lot different than normal ones. Maybe that's why I can find them so easily. They're odd ones fit. The advertisements were for like Commander, MagicGathering.com, the intro packs, Magic Online, other places and stuff too. So it was a lot of like product connections with these background stuff. Now, this set had sample decks. Just like in M11, there were a number of sample decks that came out. The M12 sample decks were 30-card decks that had basic lands, commons, and 4 uncommons. They also had not only M12 in them, but some cards from the Scars of Mirrodin blocks. Each card had its own packaging, focused on a planeswalker that were featured on the set. The design of the packaging was by Lisa M. Douglas, and wrapped from the art wrapped around it there. I'm not going to get into the entire thing of decks, but basically there were 2 versions of each of these decks. So there was 2 different white decks, 2 different blue decks, etc., as we go on there. You can look up online these full decks, but again, these are very simple, really sample packs more than even intro packs, because it is some lands, a bunch of commons, and 4 uncommons. There isn't a lot to them overall. But still, nonetheless, if you wanted to get a little bit of thing and get a little bit of sample of Magic, this is a great way of doing it. Alright, so, why am I showing a reprint of Archon of Justice? Well, that's a good question for you to ask me. Archon of Justice here, being a reprint, has a new text on it that's different than before. The current text on here is, when Archon of Justice dies, exile target permanent. Why is this important? Because in M12, the shortcut wording dies came into existence. It simply means put into the graveyard from the battlefield. So, previous printings would have said when Archon of Justice is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, exile target permanent. Now it says dies. These phrases are interchangeable. And similar, the word died means was put into the graveyard from the battlefield. This term is only if the creature is moving from the battlefield to the graveyard, only if the effect doesn't care which player's graveyard the creature is put into. So the complete phrase is put into a graveyard from the battlefield. So again, like if it's put into your graveyard, or put into someone else's graveyard, or something like that, you know, for effects that might do things like that, it wouldn't mention particularly. And older cards in the Oracle and Gather got updated to use this new term. So basically, going forward, one rules change here. Dies. Talk about some of the mechanics here. And of course, hey, hexproof. I mentioned hexproof a little bit as a new ability. This is, a creature can't be target of spells or abilities opponent controls. Lord of the Unreal here gives illusions you control +1/+1 in hexproof. It's like Shroud. Shroud was a previous one that we knew that target could not be target of spells or abilities. Basically, hexproof is like Shroud, except you as the controller can still target your creatures. It's basically referred to as Troll Shroud in a lot of ways, because Troll Aesthetic was one of the first creatures that actually had that. It could not be the target of spells or abilities opponents controls. This is back in Mirrodin. That's why I said this ability has been around. Shroud is a much older keyword, but Shroud has also been mostly replaced by Hexproof. It's a much better version of the same ability. And yes, from Troll Aesthetic, where it was first published, we finally get this as a keyword, replacing Shroud. Of course, then I mentioned Bloodthirst coming back, and hey, here's Furyborn Hellkite, Bloodthirst 6. Hey, you dealt damage to the opponent. It's a 12/12 now when casting it. It was originally in Guild Pack. It wasn't a little bit in Future Sight. Yes, you have a dragon here with Bloodthirst, but a lot of the theming was around the Vampire Tribe in this set. Basically, again, it's that entire thing that we have usually very tribal things in a core set. Elves for green, goblins for red, in this case for red, for black, vampires. And they had a huge Bloodthirst mechanic on them. Now, the Planeswalkers return. And in this case, Gideon Jura. Again, a reprint from the Eldrazi block. Good old Gideon from that block returning once more. With him being causing things to attack him, destroying tap creatures, or becoming a creature that prevents all damage that's dealt to him. Interestingly enough. But again, none of these were the original Lorwyn Planeswalkers that we kind of had reprints of previously. The only two that were actually new are Gideon and Sword. This is the first time, basically, 3 new Planeswalker cards were made for a core set. Now, again, all these cards had cards in the set mentioning them, but this was a very interesting kind of adept here that we had these new Planeswalkers. Let's talk about one of them. Let's talk about our new Chandra, because we could talk about the cycles. There were 9 major cycles in this entire set, and Chandra is a good representative of the Planeswalker cycle. She's a new card, a new version of Chandra, a Firebrand. She can kick up from her 3 loyalty she starts with to do 1 damage to a target. Go down 2 when you cast an instant sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell and choose new targets. Then your next one. Or for down 6, you have 6 damage of up to 6 target creatures or player. Her ultimate's not bad, it can nuke a bunch of things, but I do like it that she does kick up for just a damage or kick down to copy something. I think she's pretty decent and can have some abilities there not too overpowered. Similarly speaking, then, we had some cards related to the Planeswalkers. We had rares and commons. I talked about Rook's Horde, and here it is again. I'm talking about it's really the... Honestly speaking, I feel like it's the best bunch up here. But basically, every Planeswalker got a rare card that referenced them. This is the Horde, the 7/7 trample for 7 mana that you have your top card revealed as a creature you can play. Yay, Grook. There were also then commons that had the Planeswalkers name. So we had rares and we had commons. Here's Sorin's Thirst, where it deals 2 damage to target creature and you gain 2 life for 2 mana. It's okay, but again, it's a common. And each Planeswalker had a common related to it. There were then some anti-commons, uncommons, color hosers. These were uncommon cards that were designed to play against enemy colors. These were reprinted from Magic 2011. Celestial Purge here, excellent target black or red permanent. Hey, the return. The Titans return! And of course, I'm going to mention everybody's favorite Primeval Titan that when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get lands. It's a favorite for a lot of land-based decks and landfall decks, because it's any 2 lands that put in the battlefield play tap. Yeah. Very powerful. The Titans are always strong, and of course Primeval, top tier. There was a cycle of mages. These were 2/1 human wizards that had a color cost of 1 and their color, this being the Zor Mage, which was blue, and an activated ability involving 1 mana of their color. They had a flavor text that describing a creed of a clan of wizards with names synonymous to their respective colors. So, hey, the Azor Mage is the Azor Creed. And for 3 colorless and a blue, you draw a card. Not bad for card draw, not great for it, but a very simple one there too. We also had a reprint of the Lucky Charms. The Lucky Charm artifacts, where they're uncommon artifacts that cost 2, and when an ability allows a controller to basically you gain 1 life when you cast a spell of the appropriate color. These were originally in Dark Steel, we're getting reprinted now here. Cool. Now, beyond these, we of course had a land cycle. Ooh, the allied color, check lands. The dual lands that enter battlefield tapped unless you control a land of the appropriate type. So if you had a swamp or a mountain for Dragon Skull Summit here, it doesn't come into play tapped, and it taps for a black and red. And this was the cycle of this, once again, continued. Now, the last little cycle was a 3-card cycle that we want to talk about. And that is the Artifacts of the Empire cycles. The Crown of Empire, Artifact of Empires cycle. The Crown of Empires, Scepter of Empires, Throne of Empires. Each of these had an activated ability, and it provokes a more powerful effect if you had all 3. The Crown, you tap target creature, and gain control of it instead if you control the other 2 artifacts. So, Crown, you can steal stuff. The Scepter taps to deal 1 damage, or 3 damage, and the other artifacts. The Throne puts a white soldier creature into battlefield, or puts 5 into the battlefield if you control all 3 artifacts. And these aren't legendary, you can have multiple copies of them, and their abilities can be pretty powerful. The gain control of the Crown doesn't last as long as you have the Crown. So if you have a copy of all 3, the Crown just starts stealing stuff. He tapped to deal 3 damage, pretty good. Granted, they require each other. But if you can get all 3 out, yeah, it's pretty neat and pretty powerful. An interesting cycle of things there in this case. There were 2 pairs that were mirrored. First off was Divine Favor and Dark Favor. So Divine Favor enters the battlefield, gain 3 life, creature gets +1/+3. Dark Favor enters the battlefield, you lose 1 life, target creature gets +3/+1. Pretty easy pair there. The other pair was the Sword and Shield, the Great Sword and the Kite Shield. These were the last 2 were common auras that were both illustrated by Alan Williams, and these are uncommon equipment artifacts that have the same equip cost and give either +3/+0 or +0/+3. Hey, 1 grants power, 1 grants toughness. Other than that, they are pretty much just there, and that's what they have. So, let's talk about Manolith a little bit here. We're going to talk about it again, and its legacy, and why it's an important card. But right now I want to talk about it because I want to talk about some of the big things that are around reprints, set changes, rarity changes that happen around a core set. Manolith here is an interesting one because it's better than something like Soul Grail from Alliances, but worse than Darksteel Ingot from Darksteel. So it is a kind of middle-of-the-road tap to add any color mana, but it has a legacy that we'll talk about here, for 3 mana, too. So just keep this in mind. It's an interesting one here. Middle of the road for how good or bad it is, in comparison to other cards that tap to add 1 mana of any color. But still interesting. Alright. Let's look into some reprints in this set. And why am I mentioning Dustcunter back here? Because this is one of the cards that were never printed before. Yeah. So, in this set, there were 153 cards from Magic 2012. Not printed in Magic 2011. So 153 cards that were completely new. Well, not all new. But what I mean is, 153 of that set of cards, remember, I said it was a 249 set cards. 153 of them are not reprints from M11. Okay. And of those, there were 100 new cards. Dustcunter Bat here, which is just a simple Bloodthirst bat with flying, 1/1, is one of those new cards. I'm not going to go over all 100 new cards, but yeah, it is a pretty good percentage. It is over a third of the cards in the set are just new cards entirely. Now, there were a number of reprints after that. There were, in fact, 53 reprints that were not in M2011. Now, some of these reprints had never been in a core set before. Others hadn't been modern legal before. Call to the Grave here is one of them that is both of those. It has not been in a core set, and last time this was printed, Scourge. Now it's printed into Modern. Beginning of your each player's upkeep, player sacrifice a non-zombie creature at the beginning of the end step. If you control if there's no creatures on the battlefield, sacrifice. So it is a very zombie positive card and kills a lot of stuff. But again, it's interesting because not only had it been reprinted in a core set before, technically hadn't been reprinted before at all, but yeah, now it's modern because M12 is modern. And there's 53 cards like this that weren't in M11. There's a good chunk of them that were there. Now there were some changes in rarity. Sengir Vampire, the on and off again, rare, uncommon. It was rare in Torment, it was uncommon, it went rare again. You know, it's uncommon again. I wasn't going to show all the rarity changes, there's only a few of them. Volcanic Dragon was rare and started 99, now uncommon. Thran Golem, which was rare in Urza's Destiny, and before it was now uncommon. Oblivion Ring, which was common in Shards of Lore and Lorwyn, is now uncommon. So there was a couple of rares that became uncommon, and then one common that became uncommon. Basically, all the changes were everything went to uncommon. There were also a lot of, honestly, more than I can list, strictly better cards or strictly worse cards in a lot of ways. So I'm just, like, going to give you one little, like, example of a strictly worse that was put here. But just keep in mind, whole bunch of cards that were in this set that were better than older ones. Whole bunch of cards that were in this set that were worse than older ones. Wall of Torches here, which is just a, you know, good old 4/1 defender. Wall of Razors from Stronghold was a 4/1 defender with First Strike. You can see how that was just better, and they just printed a worse version. Now, the final thing to mention is, hey, core sets. We still had one card that's appeared in all of them since Alpha. Giant Spider. Giant Growth was removed. Giant Growth is no longer in every set. Giant Spider. We still have it. It's been everything from Alpha. Now, granted, I will tell you this. Not that Giant Spider won't appear again, but this is the last hurrah of the Giant Spider in every set. This is the last time we're going to have this. It's an interesting thing to match that after now, when we get to M13, the next core set, there will no longer be a card that's been in every. We'll see Giant Spider again. This won't be the last printing of it. Just show up in a whole bunch of places. Still shows up now. It was in Dominaria Remastered. But yeah. It was an Amonkhet. Core Set 2019. No. Farewell, Giant Spider. You served us well. Farewell. There was some functional reprints too, we can mention. There were, in fact, 5 functional reprints in this set. And this is the good one to mention here. Gideon's Lawkeeper was a functional reprint of Gold Medal Harrier. Basically, the only thing difference between them is the type. One's a human soldier, the other is a Kithcane soldier, and they both have to target creature. Yeah, creature type's going to be the main one. That's different from these, but yes, we had some Sidewind Drake, Shifting Shade, Bonebreaker Giant, and Trollheim, all in this set. Functionally reprints of other things, just with different names. So that means you can have 8 of them in a set if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could, if you wanted to. Let's talk about some notable cards. Phantasm Image is an interesting one here because it's kind of just better than Clone, with a very illusion ability. Yeah. You have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except illusion in addition to its other types in games. When it comes to targeting spell or ability, sacrifice it. So, yeah. The only downside is, if it becomes targeted, it gets killed. But, for 2 mana, it's Clone. Combined with things like the Lord Delusions I showed earlier, which has Hexproof, and only you can target it, and, well, then you don't have to worry about sacrificing it if you're not going to target it. So definitely had some uses there, too. And using a lot of tribal decks to put copies of significant creatures, lords in the tribe. And you could kill a legendary creature with the old legend rules with it, too. So, like, you could kill Emrakul with it. And it was oftentimes played along with Unreal. Swiftfoot Boots. It's in Commander to no end. Equip 1, it has hexproof and haste. It is a big classic within the Commander format, and protects a lot of valuable things like your Commander. So yeah, it's a pretty big one there. The Grand Abolisher. We mentioned him as being a big thing on the packs. He protects a lot of combos from being disrupted. How? Well, during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities and artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. You shut down a lot of stuff your opponents can't do on your turn. The 2 other new Planeswalkers. We should talk about these. Garruk puts a beast into play for taking up 1. Kicks down 3 to draw cards amongst the greatest power creatures you control, and puts a worm token in the battlefield for each land you have for taking down 6. Pretty standard green. And then Jace is a very interesting one, where you can pick up to draw a card, and then target player puts the top card of his or her library, his or her graveyard. That's important because target player. Yeah, I draw a card, but maybe I want things in my graveyard. Chase can be good that way, or I can mill an opponent. And for 0, you have target player put the top 10 cards of his library in your graveyard. Again, you could mill an opponent 10 for 0, or maybe just you want 10 cards in your graveyard. And then for -7, any number of target players each draw 20 cards. That could be very good because, hey, maybe I want to draw 20 cards, or, hey, you who have been milling, do you have less than 20 cards in your deck? Draw. So Jace is a very interesting one here. I like him better than Garruk. I've seen better forces from him, but he's a blue card, and blue cards can kind of be jerkish. It's a blue card. Sundial of the Infant is the first reappearance of the end-of-turn mechanic since in Champions of Kamigawa. And this is the last time it appears until Days Undoing in Magic Origin. So this is like it says end the turn. Activate this ability only during your turn. It's interesting that this idea of just ending a turn doesn't show up a lot. And Sundial of the Infinite does it. And again, it's your turn. It's specifically ending. There might be reasons for you to skip your end step. Or maybe you want to skip your main phase or something like that. You have your upkeep, skip your entire main phase. Why? There could be reasons behind it. And certainly speaking, Sundial of the Infinite could work with those combos if you have them. Visions of the Beyond. It is a key source of card advantage in a lot of modern decks that focus on milling the opponent. You draw a card for 1 mana, and if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, draw 3 cards instead. I'm milling my opponent. Your graveyard has a bunch of cards in it. I get 3 cards for 1 mana. I get an Ancestral Recall because I've been milling you. You're welcome. Manolith, we're talking about it again. Why? Well, the other thing that's important about it is it became a nickname for any of 3 mana artifacts that tap for mana of any color. Basically, whenever you get an artifact that costs you 3 mana to play it out, taps for any color, Nick's nickname is Manolith now. It's actually referenced on a card later on in Kaldheim, Svellir Ice Shaper, which creates a snow artifact token named Icy Manolith. That does this. Taps for any color mana. So, yeah, it became a thing, it became a nickname, and became a thing later on. I just like it. It's kind of interesting that they did that. Stoneborn Dignitary. Of course. When enters the battlefield, target opponent skips his or her next combat phase. It's in a lot of big popper decks, because you can flicker it, and basically prevent an opponent from ever having a combat phase. So there's a bunch of popper decks that use this with flickering to basically shut down combat against them. Kind of interesting. And of course, we can talk about That broke. Interesting. That broke. Why? There we go, I fixed it. I don't know why that broke. I did, but I fixed it. Glade cover scout. Always when I'm doing one of these videos, something breaks. Always. It's just how it happens. Anyway, the scout here is actually one of the cheapest creatures with hexproof. It's a 1/1 for 1 mana with hexproof. It is a perfect deck for a lot of modern and pauper decks that use that kind of thing. And then we have one banned restricted card in this set. Very interestingly, Circle of Flame. Why is this banned anywhere? It's whenever a creature without flying would attack Planeswalker or creature control, it deals 1 damage to that. That's not really that great. It's banned in Pauper. Well, why would it be banned in Pauper? It's uncommon. Well, because on Magic Online, where it's banned in Pauper, it was printed as common for a promotional card that made it legal. The common promotional printing made it legal in Pauper on Magic Online. So it's banned. Because of that. Because of a technicality. Because the promo was printed as common. Yeah. Technicality made it legal in Pauper. They shut that down. I think it's just funny that that happened. You know, it's like, you know, that's a technicality that's kind of, it's a promo. We're saying no to that. We're just going to say no to that. Let's talk about a number of other cards that were in the set. That is not what I want to do here. That's what I'm doing. There we go. Oh, everything's broken. Angelic Destiny. You enchant a creature, gets +++4. It's flying for a strike. It's an angel. And when a creature dies, you get Angelic Destiny back. Doubling Champ. For each creature you control. This is a very interesting one because it really relies on you having multiple copies of creatures. You shoot your library for a creature card with the same name as a creature card that you have on your battlefield and put those onto the battlefield. Basically, you double your creatures. If you have a lot of creatures, you know, that you have copies of in your deck, you double them. Interesting. I like Druidic Satchel. It's not really the best card, but it's interesting. You can deal the top card of your library. If it's a creature, you get a Sapperling. If it's a land, you put it in the battlefield under your control. If it's a non-creature land, you gain 2 life. So you get something no matter what it is. I do find it interesting. Elixir of Immortality. It's a reprint, but I love it. You gain 5 life. You shuffle it into your, it and your graveyard into your library. You know. Another reprint that I do like, because it's probably the better of the Lord-type characters for elves, and in particular in this set, Elvish Archdruid. Gives all your other elves +1/+1, and it taps for 1 green mana for each elf you control. Pretty powerful. Another reprint I like, just because it's silly, Goblin Grenade. Yeah, Goblin Grenade from Fallen Empires was reprinted here. It's just such an interesting and weird thing. Sacrifice a Goblin, deal 2 damage to target creature or player for 1 mana. It's just silly. Another reprint that's a very interesting one is Incinerate. Slightly worse than Lightning Bolt, but the fact that it deals 3 damage to a target and that creature can't regenerate. Granted, regeneration doesn't show up a lot, but it's there enough times that you might want to deal with it. Jace's Archivist is very interesting because each player discards their hand and then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards discarded this way. This can be very deadly to cards, especially in a deck where you have no maximum hand size and draw cards. I have a blue deck where this would be really great in. I don't know if I have it in it. But regardless, because of that blue deck, it's made for me to draw a lot of cards that have no maximum hand size. It's the, you know, you draw your deck out and you win the game kind of deck. Laboratory Maniac that does that. But with this, you could just, I discard my hand. I draw the other half of my deck. You die. you draw a lot of cards and lose a lot of cards. I don't know. It has some interesting applications, especially, you know, could be very good in certain places. Lore, a reprint from back in Alpha Unlimited. You know, all creatures able to block, so do so. Mind Unbound. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a lore counter on it, and then draw a card for each lore counter on it. So you start by drawing, after the first turn you play, you draw 1 card, then 2, then 3, and it keeps going up as you get more lore counters. And hey, what's this? Is it a counter? What's this thing called Proliferate that showed up in Scar's block just recently? That I could proliferate some counters on there and get more cards. Personal Sanctuary. During your turn, prevent all damage that will be dealt to you. Very interesting. If it's your turn, you don't have damage taken to you. If you play stuff that would deal you and other players damage, you don't take it. What are you going to good there for some protections and, player hate by basically hating all players that do damage. Comboing it. Primeval Hydra is an interesting one. As a Hydra creature, where it's an X creature that comes to the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it, this is an interesting one is because during your upkeep, at the beginning of it, you double the counters on it. And if you have 10 or more, there's Trample. So yeah, it doubles every turn. I like that as a Hydra. It's probably one of the meaner Hydras that are out there. Quicksilver Amulet as a reprint. It's a very interesting one because you put a creature card from your battlefield in your hand. I cheat out and, granted, you're not getting the cast effect. I cheat out an Emrakul. Oh, I didn't cast it. I don't get the extra turn. I still have the giant flying annihilator creature that I cheat out at the end of your turn. Oh, it's my turn now. I can attack with it. Still, it has some really good effects, and it's very powerful. And I like it. It's a good reprint to talk about. Another reprint, Rites of Flourishing, where at the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw an additional card, and each player will play an additional land. Yes, it helps your opponents, but, certainly speaking, as the giving a lot of extra things and playing a lot of lands, drawing a lot of cards, I do like this one. Rites of Flourishing is one of my favorites on that end, and you can, if you have a deck that can play off it better than their opponents, hey. For some silliness, Scramble Burst! For each non-land permanent, so lands don't change for this, choose a random player, then each player gains control of each permanent he or she was chosen. Untap those permanents. So basically, every permanent that's not a land in play, you basically randomize who gets it. If you combine that with playing, let's say, after I get Scramble Burst out, something that allows me to regain the creatures I own, just saying. There are ways to do it, and it's just silly. Skin Shifter. A 2-mana, 1/1, but you can, for 1 mana then, change what it is. Either to a 4/4 Rhino with Trample until end of turn, a 2/2 Bird with Flying, or a 0/8 Plant. So, again, 2 mana for a 0/8 effective wall that you have to pay a mana for, not bad. Skin Shifter's history that way. Sworn's Vengeance. Of the other rare Planeswalker named cards, I thought this was interesting, because it just does 10 damage to a target and you gain 10 life. You nuke something for 7 mana, or another player. Oh no, you do 10 damage to target player and you gain 10 life. You nuke another player and gain 10 life. It's a big switch. And Vengeful Pharaoh is another interesting one. A Death Touch for 5 mana, that's 5/4, and when combat damage tells you or Planeswalker control, if this is in your graveyard, destroy the attacking creature and put it on top of your library. So it kind of comes back. Not the best comeback, but it is there. Alright, let's talk about intro packs. So I'm not going to go into full details about all the intro packs. I'm going to give a basic about them, and then of course some information about them, the rares that are in them. In this case, Sacred Assault. It's a green-white deck. It's big enchantment focus. Remember I talked about there was some aura focus in the set? Hey, this plays off the aura focus for green and white. The 2 rares in the set, of course, were Aegis Angel and Mesa Enchantress. The Aegis Angel being a flying 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible as long as you control it. Protects another creature or target. And of course the Mesa Enchantress, when you cast an enchantment, you draw a card. It's an enchantment aura deck. Of course you have Mesa Enchantress. It's a great one. The Mystical Might is a blue-white deck. And it's a control deck. Ooh. Things like Mind Control in here, Oblivion Ring, and Lure of the Unreal. Other ways to kind of take care of some control. That means we got into the 2 rares are, of course, Lure of the Unreal, which I previously talked about, and Sphinx of Uthun, which I mentioned before. But when it enters the battlefield, the top cards of your 5 cards of the library, they go into 2 piles. An opponent separates them 2 piles. You get one in your hand, the other in the graveyard. It's one of those things that, I draw the top cards, I reveal them, an opponent gets to basically split them apart, and I get one of those, the other goes to my graveyard. I think I want it in my graveyard for enhancements to this deck for blue white, but maybe you don't. Grab for Power is our blue-black deck, and you know what combines? Crown of Empires, Scepter of Empires, Throne of Empires. That combo of all 3 of them, it does have a focus on that. Granted, that's not the only one. The Throne of Empires is a rare there, but they also have the Runescarred Demon, also on the packs. When it enters, you search your library for a card, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. Runescar Demon is you get a 6/6 flying demon, and you get to demonic tutor. Yeah. Our red-black deck focuses on Bloodthirst, so it's a very vampire-y deck, but not only vampires. And it's got some interesting rares in here because, yeah, it's got some goblins, some vampires. The real big things here are its dragon and its enchantment, which we're going to talk about here. The dragon, of course, being here the Flame Blast Dragon, and the enchantment being Warsworn Scourge. Flame Blast Dragon being a reprint from Shards, where when it attacks, you may pay X and red to do X damage to any target, including a player. So hey, I burn things for a 5/5 flying dragon. But Warsworn Scourge, which is a pretty good one here, which I'm really kind of happy, we shows up here. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Warstorm Surge is pretty potent. Pretty potent. And of course, our last of the intro decks, which we can talk about here, is Entangling Webs, the green-red one that has a spider focus. Interestingly enough, it does this because I show off the rare here, which I'll talk about, but it also has the card that deals with the rare. It has Grook's Horde, cool, Grook's Horde again. It's also got Arachnus Spinner, which deals with Arachnus Webs. Why is that? Well, Arachnus Spinner is a 5/7 reach. When tap and untap spider control, search your library graveyard for a card named Arachnus Web, put it attached to a creature. Yeah, an Arachnus Web, which I don't show here, is a enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. And at the end step, if its power is 4 or greater, you destroy it. Arachnus Web is very good for shutting down smaller creatures, and the Arachnus Spinner can basically, you can shut down key parts of combos that are free power or less very easily, or shut down a creature for a turn. Because at the end of the turn, that the web would go away. And using a spider deck, it's kind of an interesting little combo that occurs there. And they got other spiders in the deck and stuff too. So it's an interesting spidery deck, kind of thing. That's the theme for it. Very kind of fascinating and strange sort of deck. Talk about the event decks. The two monocolored ones. A blue and a black. The blue one is Illusionary Might. It's an illusion deck. Now, I'm going to tell you, both of these decks, they do have rares from M12. Most of them aren't. Yeah. Yes, it's an illusion deck. Illusionary Might here has a lot of phantasmal creatures. It has, like, a couple... This is the one that has a couple of rares from this set. Others don't. Interesting, the other one doesn't for its rares from this set. It's got cards from the set, but not rares. Let's take a look at its rares, because each of the decks has 7 rares. This one has 6 different ones, as it has 2 Grand Architects. It's got the Glacial Fortress, which is only one of, which is fine. Again, this is a 1, which is technically in this set, so this is a part of it. They have the Grand Architect from Scars of Mirrodin. That's the one that has 2 of, which boosts blue creatures and can turn artifacts creatures blue. There's artifacts in this deck. The Lord of Unreal. Hey, boost your illusions and get some hexproof. Phantasmal Image, we talked about that. Precursor Golem, which creates a number of extra golems. And then Steel Helicite, which are both reprints in this deck. It's a pretty good one. Very interesting there. Of course, then, our other deck here, which is a black deck and vampire themed, is Vampire Onslaught. Yay, vampires! Now, it has 5 different rares in it, 2 of which they have 2 copies of. And again, 7 rares. And, really, here's the thing. None of these are in M12. Yeah. Fervent Catacombs. It's a fetch land from Zendikar. Pay 1 sacrifice to search for a swamp or forest. The Bloodghast. Again, Zendikar. Can't block. If your creature has low life, it's got landfall. Callisto Highborn. When another creature dies, you may pay 1 to have target player lose 2 life, you gain 2 life. Worldwake, the Blade of Blood Chief from Zendikar. Again, Zendikar probably had a better vampire theming, that's probably why there, and the Mimic Vat from Scars of Mirror. So it's interesting because, yeah, there was a better bit of vampires in Zendikar. So there are some vampires from here, from M12, but none of them are the rare ones. Because it really wasn't great. They weren't probably going to use the same mythic they had before. So it's just so interesting there. And the Bloodlord of Vazagoth, which you could have gotten as a promo, probably fits in here, can fit in here very well and help out the deck and other things that are in here. But there's 2 of the Bloodghast, 2 of the Blades of the Blood Chief, but otherwise there's 1 of each of these. Kind of an interesting thing here. There you go, there's M12. And a few technical issues with it, but that's fine. Those always happen. Yeah, M12 is a very interesting set because it is continuing to be these new evolved versions of core sets. We can see here there's reprints that we haven't had before. Interesting, a lot of new cards to freshen up, new cards which kind of help the format. Again, like this is the kind of thing of a core set. Rather than just a pure reprint set, it's oftentimes pretty heavily reprinted. But again, 100 new cards is a pretty significant amount of them. And they have things like new versions of the Planeswalkers, new cards related to those, and definitely still a lot of reprints. Reprints from M10, M11, and beyond, and before then. There's just so much interesting things about the core set that, these are very good sets. Are they incredible power bases? But it's got good reprints in it. Reprints that are very good for various formats, from standard to modern to wherever you're using them. Silver Amulet, that's a great one. I can just point out a lot of cards and I'm like, these are great cards that you can use in a lot of places that probably have to use them. Granted, Power Creep, are they the best cards nowadays? Some of them still probably really good. But yeah, it's a crapshoot. But it's a very interesting crapshoot. And I hope you've enjoyed exploring it today. Because that'll be it. I'm going to get going. I'm going to head off. Going to maybe do some more stuff with Twitch chat. Maybe record some more videos. Please remember to either check me out live over on Twitch or over on the YouTube side. All my tabletop stuff that I either record live or do stuff over on Twitch ends up on YouTube from my tabletop videos like this one, which are Magic History and other lore videos, to things like Fall of Avanswell, my live play of a TTRPG, Wednesdays at 8, my discussion show / podcasty thing discussing tabletop, Saturdays at 6. If you can join them live, thumbs up. If not, check them all out on YouTube. That social media is linked below. That's from Blue Sky, Twitter, X, Discord, all those kind of things. I keep people up to with my schedule, what I'm doing on various days, when I'm going live on those days, all those kind of things. And of course, when things are being uploaded onto YouTube. Please check out all that stuff. I hope you had a good day. I'm going going. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.